Hey guys, I know we're already halfway into this season, but like I said in one of my recent videos, I wanted to get a better feel of the meta and give a more accurate list of the heroes that I have seen performing really well, especially in solo queue. Anyway, like usual, in this video I will present to you the top 15 heroes for solo ranking. Master any of these and you'll have absolutely no problem reaching the highest rank. If you need a build or tutorial for any of these heroes, you can check the links for those videos in the description. Some might be outdated when I make this video, but as I keep making new videos for these heroes, I will also update the video links as well. Also, the list is in no particular order, and heroes that are banned almost all the time are not included in this list, such as Estes, Arlott, Joy, Novaria, Minsitthar, and Alpha. Without further ado, let's start with the list. Paquito is like the new Cho. He has always had a place in the meta ever since he was released, and there's a good reason for that. He has insane mobility. He's not the easiest to kill if you have quick reaction, can CC the hell out of his target, deals an insane amount of damage, and most importantly, he's based on one of the best boxers ever. I think with just the last part, that's enough said. You can play him as the jungler or in the XP lane, but for solo queue, I would recommend playing him more as the jungler, since you'll be able to dictate the pace of the game better. Eve is such a great mage because she can constantly harass the opponents from a safe distance with her second skill. Also, she moves quite fast with her first skill, and her ult allows her to completely destroy the opponents in a big team fight. Just make sure to wait for the right timing before fully committing, or else the opponents can burst you down quite easily, because you'll be stationary. Even in the highest rank, she's one of the most picked mages, so you already know how deadly she really is when you know how to position yourself during the team fights and know when to engage and disengage. Melissa is definitely one of the best marksmen to counter those melee heroes. Her ult makes her almost immune to any melee damage, and more importantly, even against those bursty mages, she can sustain quite a lot, because her ult gives her tons of physical and magic resistance. Also, she can pretty much go toe to toe against any marksman, so she should have no problem farming in the laning phase, which is absolutely crucial for any marksman, especially when you're playing solo queue, because more often than not, you cannot really rely on your teammates. Uranus is definitely back in the meta, and a lot stronger, especially with a recent buff he received, and definitely because of the new emblem system. Now he can sustain a lot better in the early to mid game, which allow him to cut the lanes non-stop and farm a lot faster. If your team ever needs somebody to play in the XP lane and you are not very familiar with this role, just pick this very super simple and easy fighter, and you will see that after a few matches, you won't be nervous about playing this role anymore. Martis does get banned from time to time, but not as often as before, which is why I decided to include him in this list. I have noticed that other players just like to go full damage build with this hero because they want tons of kills, but if you really care about winning more than kills, I will highly recommend to just build one or two offensive items and then the rest just go full defensive items. You will see that you will have a much better chance at winning games with this more durable build, because Martis already can deal tons of damage without many offensive items, so being more durable is gonna make you a total nightmare for the opponents to deal with. Also, you definitely want to equip him with the Killing Spree talent, because very often you'll be the one dealing the last blow on the opponent. Harley is an absolute monster in solo queue. If you really have mastered this hero and know how to rotate efficiently, you'll be able to increase your win rate exponentially. Okay, maybe I'm a bit biased because of how much I like this hero, but there's a good reason why I like this hero so much, especially in solo queue. Probably the number one issue we all face when we play in solo queue, we cannot really rely on our teammates. But with this hero, you should have not much issue dictating the flow of the game all by yourself. Of course there will be games that no matter how well you do, there will be struggles, because that's part of the game. But at least if you play this hero well, you will give your best chance at winning every time. Usually I'm hesitant to include heroes that are heavily dependent on the blue buffs, because in solo queue, the opponents might pick very nasty heroes to invade your jungle constantly, and just like I said before, you never know if your teammates are gonna help out or not. But I have no choice but to include him here, because he's an absolute monster in the current meta. You might need to practice a little bit before you get comfortable flying around and using his ult, but once you get the hang of his playstyle, you'll be able to do so much, and even if your team is losing, you can always split push or constantly target those squishy heroes farming on their own. Beatrix is probably the most dynamic marksman. I mean, she has 4 different types of guns. Although her shotguns is not as OP as before, and you'll probably rarely use it, her other guns are still deadly as before or even better. Also, what makes her so good is that she can use 2 ults one after another and can clear the wave almost instantly, making her one of the best at defending the base when your team is losing. And actually in solo queue, if you're good at defending, very often you'll be able to make a comeback, because the opponents tend to get a bit desperate and start making really silly mistakes when trying to finish the game. Badan is one of those heroes that can completely change the tide of the game with just one insanely good ult. Even if your team has been losing the whole game, if you have never neglected your farm throughout the whole game, you'll have a good chance to make a comeback. Because as long as you have built enough items to one-shot combo their squishies, you can make a surprise flicker ult combo, and boom, just like that, the opponents can't do anything anymore, because you are taking out at least 2 or more of them. I personally have seen this happening a lot, which is why I can never underestimate this hero. Lunox might seem like a poke mage for the inexperienced players, but she is definitely a burst hero if you know how to do the trick with her ults. It will require quite a good amount of practice, but once you get it nailed down, just like Badan, you can jump right into the opponent's backline and remove the biggest threats with her combo. Also, another great thing about her is that she's not the easiest mage to kill, thanks to the immunity she gets when using her light ult. You just gotta master when to use her dark form and when to use her light form. Leslie is probably, actually, I'm certain that she's the marksman that hit the hardest in the late game. And doesn't matter what items the opponents build, she will still be dealing the same amount of damage. Okay, some might say Twilight Armor, but it only stops 1 bullet, and it has quite the cooldown. So honestly, I don't think it's that great of an item just to try to counter Leslie. But unlike other marksmen, Leslie doesn't have a dash, so your positioning gotta be absolutely impeccable during a team clash. It's okay to go for the tank or whoever's in the front line, because she can melt them down quite easily. Valentina is the kryptonite of all those heroes that have some very juicy ults, such as Faramis, Diggy, Minotaur, and so on. So once you see that they pick a hero with a really good ult, then definitely consider picking Valentina. It's totally okay to build her full damage build, but if you see that the opponents have tons of burst heroes, then I would highly recommend building at least 1 or 2 defensive items. Valentina has to get quite close to the opponents to deal damage, so she's a lot easier to get one-shotted. Remember, being dead equals 0 damage. Brody is a marksman that deals as much damage as most assassins. Not only does his skills deal an insane amount of damage, but each of his basic attacks are as lethal. But we all know that his main source of damage is his ult, so forget about building items that focus on his basic attacks. Just go full penetration items and you will see those squishy heroes getting absolutely crushed. And what I like about this marksman is that you don't need to go full offensive items to be as scary. For the last item or 2, just go for some defensive items and you'll be doing way better than with a full damage build Brody. Hayabusa is another excellent assassin that can do a lot by himself. He's not the easiest to kill, has insane mobility, and can get kills and then get out without much problem. But just like many assassins, You also need to practice quite a bit to nail down his second skill, but once you get familiar with his mechanics, especially using the first skill first before swapping plays with the shadows that had hit your target, then you will start noticing that this is one of the most annoying heroes to go against, especially if you have truly mastered this hero. I actually intentionally left Florin for last, because usually a roamer is not that amazing in solo queue, but lately I've noticed more and more players picking her, and she's actually such a powerful support that even if you're with random teammates, you can still do pretty damn well. I've been picking her a few times and noticed how incredible she has truly become, from an absolute useless, trash, the worst of the worst support, to one of the best, especially because her ult is not only global, but it also makes those anti-heal items quite useless for a few moments, which will give your teammates a much better chance at surviving. And that's it for this list. I know there are many more heroes that are really great that I didn't include in this list, such as Esmeralda, Terizla, Alice, Lapu Lapu, and Kufra. Actually, I definitely should have included Lapu Lapu, but it is what it is. Anyway, in the end what really matters is not the hero itself, but how the players play the hero. So whatever hero you wish to play, just master them, and you will still do fairly well no matter the rank.